We're live. 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. So the pilot episode has been published. Welcome back to I'm Walking Here, by the way. This is I'm Walking Here. Broadcast by me, your host, Miguel. Recorded a pilot episode, and I kind of like the way it came out. There's definitely lots of room for improvement. After watching the episode myself, I think a few critiques of mine would be I got to stop doing this, rubbing my face so much. I got to be a little bit more articulate. I got to be more articulate. Express my opinion, express myself. Use those words, those phrases. Just completely drove them into the dirt. You could have made a drinking game out of the number of times I said that I wanted to express myself. Blech. Sounds dirty. That could be a drinking game too. Me times I rub my nose. But either way, this is I'm Walking Here. We're going live. I'm Miguel. We're in Charleston, South Carolina. It's a beautiful day. Going for a walk, as I do, and the wheels are turning. Trying to be creative, trying to talk about stuff that will hopefully help the world, right? Put out those good vibes, those good messages to offset some of the negativity that's going on in the world. Some of the perceived negativity as I perceive it. By the way, before I get too carried away, how about those Cowboys? If you've made it to minute 2, almost minute 3, jeez. Spit it out, Mata. If I haven't offended you already, maybe the fact that I'm a Cowboys fan will get you to push the X, right? Close out the window. I'm sorry. My Cowboys fandom, it knows no bounds. Loyal Cowboys fan, silver and blue, through and through. Born and raised. And last night we had a big win against the white hot New Orleans Saints. And if I get a little time at the end of this episode, maybe we'll talk some football. But for now, I'd like to use this first episode to kind of set the foundation for the stuff, the things, the ideas that make up, kind of the person that I am, right? The things that I find that I put stock in. There might be some folks that watch this video who know me personally, and they might say, "Yeah, that checks out. I knew that guy for that stuff." And there might be some of you who are like, "That makes no sense." And you might think that I might be full of it, if you will, full of it. But you know what? Those who know me best know that the points I'm about to make are essentially what I'm made of from the core. So without further ado, right? Number 1, it's 3 things: education, accountability, community. Those 3 things to me are what make up make good people. Those are the models. Those are the three ideas that I try to follow personally, because I think that makes me a better person, and I think that's what good people are made of. Education. Education is something that I've always felt very strongly about. I'm one of those believers that education is the great equalizer, right? Read some stuff about some scholars who have used that term specifically. Education is the great equalizer, and I think that's true. Education was a big part of what motivated my family, my grandfather specifically, to settle in the States when he did back in the 60s, and bring his family over to the States, because he felt that his kids, right, and his kids' kids could be successful in this country because we had the opportunity to get an American education. At that time, that was, I don't want too much black space here, but I'm trying to be careful with my words, because I don't want to come off like fake, you know. But the point is that my grandfather felt that his kids had the opportunity to succeed in this country, or to succeed in general, because they had access to a sound education, a high quality education, an American education. And that essentially is how they were raised and how I was raised, to believe that because we're in America, we have the opportunity to get an American education. Therefore, we have an opportunity to do something with our lives. I felt like a super big shadow. It doesn't help that my head is ginormous, casting this big shadow on myself. Probably should have went the other direction. Noted. Episode 2, go the opposite way on the trail. Gosh, man, it's really bad. But the education was the key to success. And I think it's important to note that for us as a family, success wasn't necessarily measured in the amount of money that you made. I guess in a way it was, but success isn't necessarily measured by whether you were rich or not. Success was measured by if you were able to sustain yourself, right? Support yourself. That to me was our American dream. My kids are going to be able to have an opportunity to take care of themselves, support themselves, and in turn support their families, because they have access to a good education. That's really what it boiled down to for us. So that message is what was imparted onto us. Go to school, get good grades, because that is the gateway to bigger things. education. Well, oh, by the way, Grandpa was right, but he was right in a lot more ways than one, because as at least as I the way I see it, I believe if you're an educated person, an intelligent person, a person of intelligence, an intellectual, got some sense, right? That's where the sense comes from. You have the potential to be able to see through BS, for lack of a better word. If ignorant people can be manipulated, intelligent people can be manipulated. But if you are an ignorant person, and that might even sound bad, because I just don't have another way to, I don't have another word. I guess for another way to say it is, if you are an intelligent person, right, someone who is educated, someone who takes the time to educate themselves, and it doesn't have to be a higher education. This doesn't have to be a college education. It doesn't have to be. But someone who is a worldly in the sense that you are well read, well versed, have taken the time to expand your mind, right? You're not narrow-minded, but you have a wide view of the world around you. This is being educated. This is intelligence. Not only book smarts, but street smarts. That to me is some of the most intelligent people. Those that have book smarts and those that have street smarts. And then those that have common sense, of course. Because common sense seems to be in short supply. However, there are people that exist in this world that aren't inherited. They're not endowed with those things, right? Sometimes it's got to be learned. Sometimes you have to educate yourself. This example pops into my head, but when I joined the Air Force, right, and I was a young man in the Air Force, I was an electrician, right? This is a technical job, a highly technical job. This is a mechanical job. I had no mechanical skills. I had zero mechanical skills. I seem to think that I ended my career as someone who knew their way around a toolbox and knew my job. I tend to think that. I don't know if that's true exactly. I don't know. But I've had people tell me that I knew what I was doing. But then again, I've also had people who told me I had my head up my butt. Trying to keep this PG-13, y'all. But either way, as a young man in the Air Force, doing a highly technical job, didn't know my way around a toolbox, and I got my fair share of butt chewings. You know, as a part of learning my way around. You know what I mean? Learning my job. I had to educate myself. I had to figure out how to do my job, right? I had to educate myself. Gosh, how the heck did I get down that rabbit hole? Well, essentially, you got to know what you're talking about. You know, you have to be able to. You have to enlighten yourself. You have to take time to enlighten yourself. If you're not open to enlightenment, and by enlightenment I mean like open to new ideas. Whatever. I already apologize. Episode 2, I'll go the opposite way. My freaking melon is casting a shadow, and I know you can't see me. Not that I have the kind of face that you would want to look at, but it's nice to at least look a person in the eye, right? All right. Well, enlightenment means, to be enlightened, at least the way I define it, is open to new ideas. And if you're not open to new ideas, then you are susceptible to manipulation, because you're allowing allowing yourself to be ignorant to things. So it's a long way around. It's a long, drawn out explanation on a show that only has 15 minutes left on it to say that if you are an intelligent and educated person, you will more than likely be less susceptible to being manipulated and be more likely to be successful in whatever endeavor you decide to take. And as an intelligent and an educated person, you then set up the next generation, whoever that may be, your kids, nephews, nieces, cousins, just kids in general, young people who are to take up the mantle after you. You set those guys up for success, right? Because you're an intelligent person and you are worldly, if you will. You then set up and you make that a priority, as I hope that I have for my kids. And they understand that it's important to be aware, educated, intelligent, the way I'm using the term, about the world around you. And if you do this, then you are less susceptible, not immune, but less susceptible to manipulation, less susceptible to distraction, right? Less susceptible to deception, but not immune. There are always exceptions. There is no sure thing. There's no such thing as a thing. If something is too good to be true, then it probably is. But either way, my opinion, an educated person is an intelligent person. An intelligent person is an educated person. And an education doesn't necessarily have to come out of a textbook. Don't let anybody fool you. I am for people going to college, but I'm also for people finding I'm more for people finding their way via their college experience. So that doesn't necessarily mean you have to graduate. For me, I mean, like what? Bill Gates didn't finish college, did he? No. John Mayer, Robin Williams. These are entertainers. Who? The Apple guy? I don't know. There's plenty of people who didn't finish college who are very successful people, but that's because they know their way around the world. Essentially, is all anyone has to do. The other 2 points that I'm getting around to is what makes you a good person, though, in my opinion. The next one being accountability. You got to be accountable to your actions. You put bad out, you're going to get bad back. That's just my opinion. If you put good out, you'll get good in return. And if you make a habit of doing good things, being a good person, a person of high moral character, right? That encompasses a lot of things. But it's not limited to like your family or your immediate family. It's also your friends and your neighbors and stuff like that. If you take the time to be a good citizen, maybe that's what I mean, right? Then you're going to get good in return. That's just the way it works. I can't, if you're a person of faith who has faith, a religious faith, then it's easy for me to say that God is, he blesses those who looks out for their neighbor. I mean, love thy neighbor. The commandment that Jesus gave his followers, and it was so important, he didn't just say it once, he said it twice. So if you're a person of Christian faith, then that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's a lot of community, but accountability has being accountable to yourself, your actions, what you say, what you do, the way you behave, the way you conduct yourself, all those things. That's accountability. And then a subset or subcategory of that is taking account for your situation, wherever you are at in the world, whatever your situation is in the world. If you're rich, if you're poor, if you're black, if you're white, if you're a natural citizen, or if you're not illegal, if you're immigrant of this country of America, doesn't even have to be just America. It's just whatever, whatever your status is. If it's good, then make it better by helping others. If it's not good, you gotta do something about that. But you can't blame, or you should not try. That's not true either. Look, I know what it means to be poor. I know what it means to live off food stamps. I know what it means to live off welfare. I know what it means to have shitty cars. I know what it means to be without electricity, to be without water, and to have to live in that stuff. I know what all of that means. But what it does not mean is that you have to stay in that situation. Does it suck? Yes. But you know what's easy? Blaming someone else for that. And here's the thing that you or anyone else, I think, should understand is that here's the harsh reality of it. You, the individual, the person who was aware of their situation as being crappy and is making the choice to make their situation better, you may not get to the promised land. Once again, I reflect on the Christian faith, right? Moses, who led the people, his people out of Egypt. He didn't make it to the promised land. You may not make it to the promised land. You may not. But your people might. Your kids could. Your nephews, your nieces, they could. It just takes someone to make the choice to be accountable for their situation, to say, I'm done with my situation, and then take control of it. And say, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you. That's what I think one of the most important lessons my grandfather taught me is that even though he was an immigrant, and even though he experienced the discrimination and abuse that comes with that stuff, because he did, he knew there was something more important at hand, and that was his kids, his grandkids, his great-grandkids, and so on. He had to endure. He had to work so hard. If you've never heard of the Bracero program, he was a Bracero in the 50s. The Bracero program. So just look it up. Bracero, Bracero. It's where Mexican labor was hired to help build infrastructure and sustain infrastructure during the post-World War II years, when all the, American men were out fighting. They had to keep things running somehow, and it wasn't just Rosie Riveter. Is that what her name was? Rosie the Riveter? It wasn't just her, right? So my grandfather was one of those people, and he endured building bridges, he endured working ranches, he endured, I will give you this for anybody who might be contradicting me on this point. Hard work was hard work. Manual labor was the way you made, was what made the world turn back then. Manual labor was what made the world turn. I'm here to tell you, don't knock it until you try it. You want to get some some self-gratification, you know what I mean? You want to feel good about yourself? Get out, mow your yard, do some gardening, roof your own house, build a fence, do something like that. But that's what he did. And he was doing that because he had to take care of his family, right? As most of us would. His experience, however, was maybe a little different because, you know, back in the 60s especially, 50s and the 60s, people weren't none too nice to anybody of any shade of color other than white, you know? However, I will say this. What got him and the rest of the people that improved his situation and generations after his in his own family were white people. So, for me, I know personally that not all white people are bad. And they haven't always been bad. No, I refuse to accept that white people are evil people or bad people or any of that stuff. Do racial tensions exist? Yes, I will acknowledge that. Definitely. They exist and they still exist today. But for me personally, white people aren't always the problem. Sometimes they're the solution. Sometimes it's not about black or white, it's about hard work and discipline. At least that's how it was for my grandfather. That's how I see it. There might be a romantic or romanticized version of the truth swirling around in my head associated with that. But the way I see it, hard work and discipline is what got us our leg up. Accountability to one's self and future generations is what moved us forward as a family. Not blaming others. That was big. There's no such thing as can't. No such thing as can't. There's no such thing as can't. Not everybody grows up that way. So, you know, that's another episode altogether. But accountability to yourself and accountability to others that you see that are within arm's reach on a regular basis. Don't concern yourself with people that are too elevated above your status. And I'm always going to be apolitical, dude. But those guys that wear the red ties and the blue ties way up in Washington, I mean, they got their own job to do. But to be, from my side of it, from the way I see it, none of those guys, none of those guys did. I did the stuff. But you know, my grandfather did it. My dad did it. He was thinking about me. And he wasn't Joe Schmo Republican or Joe Schmo Democrat that gave me the leg up. We take advantage of the situation. We take advantage of our circumstances, wherever the advantages might be. We deal with the shortcomings, and you make magic from there. You know, that's how you make magic. So many parts advantage, so many parts disadvantage. You mix it, poof. Hard work, sprinkle in a little hard work, a little discipline, poof. All right, so that was accountability. I mean, I kind of went around. I went around that subject and might not even talked about accountability at all. But either way, that's that. And as far as the last thing about community, man, I already kind of touched on that too. Do for others. You'll feel better. There are people that are unfortunate in this world. There are people whose circumstances really stink. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily have to be, I'm not necessarily just talking about poor people. I'm talking about people with special needs, you know, or people who don't do well in school, or people who are out of work and need jobs, even homeless people. These people need help, you know, and it's not necessarily important, or at this point in those people's lives, I guess I'm talking more about poor people, low-income people, homeless people, whatever. Special needs people, they can't help their situation, their circumstances. But homeless, low-income, all that stuff, you can. It's not whatever choices that were made or mistakes that were made or events that led to the situation that found them wherever they were at when you found them, as someone who needed help, the mistakes and stuff shouldn't be held against them. It shouldn't be. That's not fair. I mean, it's not fair. Life ain't fair, you're right. But if you found yourself in a situation where you've got some good fortune and you can afford to share a little bit of that fortune, why not? Why not do it? You're making the world a better place that way. And in the end, isn't that what we're all trying to do? Aren't we all trying to make the world a better place? I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make the world a better place. That's not true. Not everybody's trying to make the world a better place. And some people aren't. Maybe I'm not a world changer. I don't know. The point is that I don't think there's enough of that going around. The care for others, help a brother out, I'm not for handouts. I'm for hand up. There's a difference. There's a difference between hand up and hand out. I'll help a man up. But there's always a limit to that stuff. But I'm not above helping someone who needs it. I'm not above helping someone who asks for it. But then again, I guess that's just, I don't know. Education, accountability, community. Let's make the world a better place, y'all. I didn't get a chance to talk about the Cowboys, but we're already at 32 minutes. Go Cowboys, though. Go Cowboys. Yeah, I hope to talk to you guys later. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Episode 1 in the books. You guys take care of yourself. God bless.